There is something deeply wrong going on in America. The United States is the wealthiest country in the world, and yet most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So where exactly that wealth? Why most people do not feel the vast wealth of the United States?
That these three giant companies, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, they own 88% of the S&P 500. There's something wrong with that.
You remember there was a day where somebody actually owned General Motors or owned Ford. Mm-hmm. They're now owned by Wall Street firms. You got three Wall Street investment firms. BlackRock, you're familiar with BlackRock. They're
Vanguard
giant.
and State Street.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How did we end up in a situation where three companies control 95% of the entire corporate America? Let's find out if that's true. So I went on Google and tried to figure out how accurate that claim is. This is Apple, the company that produces your smartphone, laptop, and computers. And if you look at the people who own Apple, at the top of the list you see Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. Microsoft, the same story repeats over here. The top holders of Microsoft stocks are Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. But how about Tesla, the company that we all love? Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. Ford Motors, the icon of American auto manufacturing. Who are the top holders of Ford stocks? Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. It doesn't matter which company you research. At the end of the day, you will find out that these three corporations own most of the stocks of that company. And it's not just about the stock market. It's about the bond market and even houses. Who do you think are the largest owner of real estate in the United States? The exact same three companies. In fact, if you simply Google these companies, and you will find out on the first page of Wikipedia that BlackRock owns almost $11.5 trillion in assets under management. State Street isn't that far behind. It controls around $4.7 trillion. Vanguard is much bigger than State Street and holds and controls assets almost as BlackRock at $10.4 trillion. These three companies alone control about $25 to $28 trillion of assets under management. That's a lot of money. These are the kind of numbers that even countries don't have. The entire GDP of China is around $18 trillion, which is far less than these three corporations own. In fact, the entire GDP of the United States is around $30 trillion. It is the largest economy in the world. Not a single country in the world can compete with the United States. Not China, Germany, India, or any other country. And yet these three corporations own as much wealth as the United States GDP. It doesn't matter how hard you work. At the end of the day, you can't make as much money as these people. You can't be making trillions of dollars, which means that you cannot possibly beat these people. And that's why a wise man once said, if you can't beat them, then join them. By the end of this video, I will give you a step-by-step guide how you can join BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard and be one of the smallest percentage of the elite society that controls not just America, but the entire world. You will be one of the people who own 95% of the entire America. You will be that person about whom Bernie Sanders talks on the Joe Rogan interview, claiming that you control America. If you watch this video till the end, you will find out how to be one of these people, and you will be the top 1%. And that's why, if you're ready, give this video a thumbs up and watch this video very, very carefully. What makes United States such a large economy and much more powerful than any other economy out there is because United States is the best place where you can make money with money. If you have worked super hard and you made millions of dollars, perhaps billions of dollars, what's the point of that money? You can't be eating 10 times a day. You can't be wearing 100 clothes. At the end of the day, if you're a smart person, you will be throwing that money into somewhere where your money will make you more money. And that's why the rich people keep getting richer, because they keep thinking about how can I send my money to the battlefield like soldiers who will make me more money. That's what we call in the world of finance as investing. So imagine on one side you have a very rich person who has a lot of money, who has billions of dollars, perhaps $100 billion, or even maybe a couple of millions of dollars. And he's thinking, how can I possibly send my money to the battlefield where they will make me more money? On the other side, you have a very poor guy who wants a roof over his head. He wants to have a house, but he's not making that much money. He's living paycheck to paycheck. He's just making $50,000 or $60,000 a year. Is that enough to buy a house where the average house price is like $500,000? And that is the least. Of course not. So how about we connect these two people? The rich person is going to provide the money for the poor person, while the poor person in exchange will give the rich person some kind of an interest. And that's why in between, to facilitate this transaction, we have multiple financial institutions to make that happen. The poor guy is going to go to the Citibank. Citibank is going to give him or provide the poor person with a mortgage. A mortgage is simply a loan that you take in order to buy a house. But Citibank has to get that money from somewhere. And Citibank is not interested in you or providing you with a house. They know that they can provide you with that house and then take that mortgage and sell it to someone else. But this investor over here, the rich guy, is a bit worried about the mortgage the Citibank will provide him. And that's why Citibank will sell your mortgage to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. These two corporations have the power to bless the mortgage. When your mortgage is being blessed by the government of the United States, then the rich guy is not afraid to invest in that mortgage. And that's why we made this deal possible. Citibank provides you with the mortgage, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac blesses your mortgage with the blessings of the government of the United States, since you are backed by the most powerful government in the world, and rich men invest in that mortgage. Now we made this transaction possible. The rich guy's money is making him his more money, and you got a roof over your head. This sounds like a very complicated system. Why can't the rich man simply provide the mortgage to the poor person? The problem is that we're not talking about one single mortgage, but millions of mortgages, trillions of dollars of money that's supposed to be invested. So to make that happen, we have multiple financial institutions in the middle that facilitate all of these transactions. But to make that much more effectively, we have created two fundamental markets to do that. One is the bond market, and the second one is the equity market, or it's known in the traditional sense, the stock market. The bond market is valued at $55 trillion. The bond market is also the debt market. It's simply providing debt to someone else at a fixed rate. So for example, in the bond market, you can buy mortgage-backed securities. Your mortgage is being sold in the bond market. The bond market is the place where corporations can borrow money by selling their bonds as well. The bond market is the place that the government can sell debt as well. It's a stable market, but you cannot possibly make a lot of money there since it's a debt. Your return is guaranteed. On the other side, we have the stock market that is valued at around $60 trillion as of the time me recording this video. The equity market is where you can buy pieces of businesses, and it's a very risky business because you have multiple businesses in the world who don't want to borrow your money as a form of debt. They want to sell you a portion of their businesses. So Apple, for example, one of the largest corporations in the world, they're not always interested in borrowing your money. If you're a rich person and you want to invest in Apple, you can buy a tiny small piece of Apple. If you want to invest in Nvidia, you can buy a tiny piece of Nvidia. And the same thing can be applied to any other business. So the equity market or the stock market is the place where you invest in businesses. These businesses could end up making hundreds of billions of dollars, or in some cases, these businesses will go bankrupt. In fact, if you're really good at identifying those businesses, you can end up a billionaire. Look at the richest investors in the world. Warren Buffett made his entire $120 billion fortune by identifying the right businesses and investing in the right businesses. Bill Ackman is another example who is a multi-billionaire and made his entire fortune on that as well. The same thing you can say about Michael Burry, who shorted the 2008 housing market and made almost $1 billion on that bet. So the better you understand the financial markets, the better investments you will make and the more money you will make. And that's where these three corporations come into the picture: Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. These three corporations do not own the stock market, but rather they make it much easier for you to invest either in the stock market or the bond market. You can go and invest in the bond market directly by buying US Treasury bills. You can go directly into the stock market and buy Apple stocks, Nvidia stocks, Palantir stocks. Or you can go to BlackRock, Vanguard, or the State Street and invest through them because they will diversify your investments. For example, Vanguard has this ETF called the Vanguard Mortgage-Backed Securities. And this ETF primarily invests in mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities aren't being sold with a single mortgage, but rather they will take 1,000 mortgages and bundle them under one giant security and sell them in the stock market. Do you have that much money to buy a mortgage-backed security? Probably not. And even if you have that much money, why would you buy one single mortgage-backed security? Maybe you want to diversify your millions of dollars. So by buying the stock of this Vanguard ETF for $45, you are investing in the mortgage-backed securities in the United States. So you are buying this stock of this ETF, and this ETF of Vanguard is buying the mortgage-backed securities. So when you have, let's say, 1 million investors buying this ETF, then they will take all of their money and keep buying mortgage-backed securities. Vanguard also has Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. This index primarily invests in the entire stock market. So by buying a share of this index for $305, you are literally investing in the entire stock market that's worth $60 trillion. Because the entire point of this fund is to invest in the entire stock market. And currently, the valuation of this fund is at around $250 billion. Let's take a look at the ETF that BlackRock provides. This ETF invests in the S&P 500. So by buying this stock, you are investing in the S&P 500. But what is the S&P 500, you might ask? It's simply an index that tracks the 500 most powerful and largest corporations in the world. You can go and directly invest in all of the 500 companies. But it's a hassle. It will take you some time. You will have to do your own research. You will have to consistently adjust and rebalance the portfolio. Or you can simply buy a share of this BlackRock ETF that consistently rebalances the portfolio and keeps investing in the top 500 largest companies in the US. Another ETF that BlackRock has is called Bitcoin Trust ETF. Now you can go and buy Bitcoin, but buying Bitcoin is a bit risky. You need a wallet, you need to track it, and you need to make sure that your Bitcoins are safe. Or you can simply go and buy for $61 an ETF of Bitcoin by BlackRock, and you're indirectly investing in Bitcoin because this ETF goes and buys a lot of Bitcoins. Every time that people buy the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, the BlackRock takes that money, combines them together, and keeps buying Bitcoins. The price of this ETF even reflects the price of Bitcoin. Over the last year, the price of Bitcoin has doubled, for example, and the price of this ETF has grown from around $25 to as high as $61. But how about State Street? I actually really like the name State Street. If I would start a financial company, I would certainly name it State Street. They have an ETF called ETF 500 Trust, and it's the exact same ETF that Vanguard has and BlackRock has that invests in the top 500 largest companies in the United States. So if you don't want to go through the hassle of individually investing in all of the 500 largest companies, you can simply go and buy for $620 this ETF. And as the share of the 500 largest companies keeps growing, the share of this ETF keeps growing as well. Another ETF they have is the technology sector. The point of this ETF is to only invest in the technology companies. So what are the technology companies in the US? You have Tesla, Apple, Nvidia, Palantir, Microsoft, Google, Uber, and so on and so forth. You can individually invest in all of these stocks, or you can invest in this ETF. So you have a lot of rich people, people with money, people who want to invest. They don't want to go through the hassle of individual investments. Or maybe they are investing individually, but in order to diversify their risk, they want to invest a portion of their money into these ETFs that are investing in these corporations. So who are these investors? You have the average people such as me. It doesn't matter whether you have millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or billions of dollars. You can literally just go to your broker and invest in any of those ETFs. You have companies. When a company makes a lot of money and they have some extra money lying in the bank and they don't know what to do with that money, why not simply take and invest that money? You can go directly invest in the bond market or the stock market, or you can simply invest it through these ETFs where you balance your risk. You have insurance companies. Insurance companies are really good at getting your money, but are very bad at giving you back that money when you actually need it. But anyways, they're sitting on billions of dollars of cash and they want to invest it somewhere. So in order to lower down the risk and make the process of investing much easier, they will do it through one of these corporations that you see out there. You have pension funds from all across the globe. Not just the Social Security in the United States, but you have pension funds in Canada that will invest in the US stocks. You have pension funds in Mexico that will invest in the stock market and the bond market in the United States. You have pension funds in Germany, Switzerland, and the rest of the world that will invest in the United States. You have other countries that invest in all of these markets through sovereign wealth funds. So imagine you have an oil-rich country that makes trillions of dollars by selling oil to the rest of the world. Now they made all of this extra money. They have to invest it somewhere, and they will take a portion of that money and invest it, for example, in the mortgage-backed securities, in the stock market, in treasury bills, in the world's largest corporations in the United States. And in order to ease up that process and make it much faster and better, they will simply go and do it through one of these corporations by buying stocks of these corporations, just like you can do that and I can do that. And all of this is made for one single purpose, so that people keep making more money. The process of getting rich is that you work super hard and you make a certain amount of money. When you made that money, now you want your money to work on behalf of you so that you don't trade your time for money your entire life. And that's why the process of getting rich is to go through the entire system. These three financial institutions just made it easier and cheaper to invest in the stock market. You can go literally right now and invest in the stock market through them. So when you see that these three corporations own trillions of dollars, it's not that they own trillions of dollars. They don't own trillions of dollars. In fact, if you literally just go to Wikipedia,
check it out on Google. They are combined, the three of them combined, are the major stockholders of 95% of American corporations.
And you see at BlackRock, you will see that $10 trillion under management. That means that I bought a Vanguard ETF S&P 500 and now they're managing my money. I own that. It's not the Vanguard that owns it. And I can sell those stocks the moment I want them. But I'm not selling them. I keep buying them because I keep getting richer. I buy ETFs of State Street, for example, and I own those stocks, not the State Street. The same thing applies to the entire portfolio of State Street and Vanguard and BlackRock. It's not that they own it, but the investors on the other side, the pension funds, the billionaires, the millionaires, the average person. So if you want to be one of the investors, it's time to master investing and learn how to do this and be one of the people who own the entire corporate America and keeps getting richer. So if you want a step-by-step guide to get your first $100,000, then you have to go and check the first link in the description of this video.